Welcome back to another episode of With a Grain of Salt. I'm your host, Isaiah Salter, and I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in yet for another week. I told you guys these solo episodes are definitely going to be a more constant thing that we put out. We're still going to have guests, we're still going to have Tom and people like that, but I do want to do one of these once a week. So I hope each and every one of y'all are doing amazing. I'm doing really well, just taking it day by day, step by step, embracing the journey, just trying to stay as present as possible and focus more on the process. Before we get into today, that's something that has really helped me tremendously. I saw a video this past week of a guy talking about how his life changed when he went from being goal-oriented to process-oriented. And I've learned, through my journey that really focusing more on the process and the journey and not focusing on outcomes will help you tremendously, because it turns into a lifestyle. It turns into an everyday thing that you're just doing, focusing on just getting 1% better each and every day, not looking for a certain destination or outcome to be like, all right, I'm good. You know what I mean? So that's just a little nugget that I wanted to say because it crossed my mind. But today we are going to be talking about 10 things that I think can help you to live a more aligned, authentic life. That's what this episode is going to be on. 10 keys to live a more aligned and authentic life. The first one is you got to know your values. Let's just start there. You got to know your values. You got to know your intentions. And a lot of this comes from knowing who you are, right? I think that's the foundation of your journey in everything, is just knowing who you are. And if you've never went down that journey of self-discovery and figuring out who you are and the person that you want to be, start that today, right? And when you start to get a little clear on, okay, this is the person that I want to be, this is the vision that I have in my mind, now let's start to implement or ask ourselves the questions, what are the values that we want to instill, right? Because that goes with that picture that we've created. What are the values and intentions and characteristics that we want to instill in our life that are aligned with where we're trying to go in that vision, right? I know one of them for me is gratitude and compassion, right? Just to name a few: gratitude and compassion. Gratitude is a daily practice for me. It's something that I always want to root myself in every single day I wake up. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful for this breath. I'm grateful to have food, to eat, and a roof over my head, right? I'm grateful for the little things. I'm grateful for all the things that I had to go through that led me to being where I'm at. I'm grateful for the struggle. I'm grateful for the adversity and the hard times, because each and every one of those moments have helped shape me into the person that I am today. I'm grateful that God has given me another day. I'm grateful that I know that my story is not over because I'm alive, right? And compassion, I think for me, compassion is something I really try to lead with. And just the way I like to view compassion is just releasing judgment of other people, releasing judgment of yourself, and understanding that, we're all trying to figure it out. We all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. And my job is not to judge people or try to change people. My job is to learn how to love people to the best of my ability. And compassion allows me to do that, because although I may not understand what somebody is going through, although I may not be somebody else, I can still have compassion for them and try to put myself in their shoes and listen to them and be there for them, and treat them with respect and love no matter what their situation is. And I think if we could just focus more on not being so quick to judge, but understanding that everybody is going through something. Everybody's dealing with different things. Everybody comes from different places, has different experiences. In the same way you're so rigidly attached to certain perspectives or beliefs because of how you've grown up, is the same way that person over there is also. And it takes you being able to take a step back from your rigidity to understand that, okay, the reason this person is acting like that or they're doing those things is because they've had certain experiences and have been through certain things that have led them to create in that perspective or that mindset, right? And so compassion, I think, is incredibly important. Something I also like to lead with every single day is curiosity. I think curiosity for me is it's the thing that really has gotten me to where I am. Just being curious, being open and wanting to learn about other people, about different cultures, about life, everything. And no matter what the situation looks like, not being so quick, that's another thing. That's what being curious helps you to do. It helps you to not be so quick to judge things as good or bad or positive or negative. Just being curious about what could this possibly be, or what is in this for me to learn, or how can I grow from this situation, right? Just being curious can help you tremendously. But it all goes back to knowing yourself and knowing your values, knowing what you want to stand for. And you got to really have, personal conversations with yourself and figure those things out, because like we always say, the number one person you're going to spend the most time with is you. So you got to make sure you're keeping it real with yourself. You got to make sure you're showing up for yourself. You got to make sure that you have your own back, right? Because at the end of the day, if you don't have you, nobody will. If you do not have you, nobody will. It might seem like people do, but at the end of the day, your foundation is going to come from the relationship you have built with yourself, And before we move on to the next, I just want you to know, do not be discouraged if you feel like your relationship with yourself is not where you want it to be. That is what this growth journey is about. It's about, okay, first bringing awareness. I am aware that I have certain things I got to work on. I'm aware that my relationship with myself isn't to where I would like it to be. After the awareness, okay, now, since I'm aware of it, how can I start to change it and do certain things that can start to push me in a different direction, shift my life a little bit? And you just take it one day at a time, one step at a time, right? So don't be discouraged if you're not where you want to be. Don't be discouraged if you're struggling with certain things, or you feel like you're behind, or you feel like you just don't know. Don't be discouraged. Understand those are all opportunities for you to lean into. Not knowing is an opportunity. Dealing with something behind closed doors is an opportunity, right? Struggling with certain things within yourself is an opportunity, right? But we like to view these things as burdens. We like to view these things as hindrances, things that are there to keep us down and to hold us in the position that we're in, right? To stop us from growing. But really, those things are all there for us to lean into, and that's where the growth comes from. That's where the growth comes from. So many people think, once I remove these things, I'll grow. But the growth comes from leaning into those things and learning how to navigate them, right? Because certain things in your life, you got to understand, certain things in your life are never going to go away, right? You're always going to have fear. You're always going to deal with certain levels of anxiety or anger or whatever it is, all these different emotions. You're always going to deal with them. The key is, how can I bring my awareness to them and start to navigate them in a way to where they're not hurting me anymore? Now I understand them. I have a healthy relationship with my emotions. I have a healthy relationship with my feelings, right? It's not about removing them in total, because a lot of people think growth means I have to get rid of the thing completely. A lot of times it's not about getting rid of the thing. It's about changing our relationship to the thing, because majority of things in our life are going to be there till the day that we transition, till the day that we pass. So you have to learn how to work with them. Don't fight against them. The more you fight against these things that are going to be with you the rest of your life, the more you're creating resistance, the more you're creating a war between you and these things that you'll never be able to let go of. Excuse me. So the goal is not to fight them. The goal is to sit with them, navigate with them, talk to them, learn how to work with them, right? Learn how to work with them. So that is the first thing. Know your values, know yourself, go on that journey, whatever it is. Key number 2, embrace vulnerability. Embrace vulnerability. I don't know why I try to cut that up into 2 words. Embrace vulnerability. Vulnerability to me is like, vulnerability has changed my life completely. And I think that vulnerability can really lead to you having the most genuine, deepest, realest connections in your life. So vulnerability is a gateway. It is a door to more possibilities, to a more in-depth version of yourself, right? It's a gateway and a doorway to real deep connections with other people and other human beings, right? We have such a negative, especially as men, we have such a negative connotation with vulnerability. We learn that vulnerability is a weakness. It's feminine. It's for a woman, right? But that's the furthest thing from the truth. When you start embracing vulnerability and really start to be vulnerable with the things that you're going through, the things that you're struggling with, and you start to be honest, that's one of the most courageous and strongest things you can do as a human being, especially as a man, right? Because in order to even in order to even really lean into your masculine and have a healthy masculinity, you have to be able to embrace vulnerability. You have to learn how to deal with the things that you're struggling with and navigate those things, right? And talk about them when you need to talk about them. You know, Brene Brown, she's somebody that I'm slowly starting to get into. I want to get into more. But she had a beautiful quote. She said, vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. That is beautiful to me. That is beautiful to me. It's not about winning or losing. Vulnerability isn't about an outcome. It's about having the courage to just show up, having the courage to just speak up, having the courage to say, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm going through, right? We're not focused on this or that or whatever. Vulnerability is just the act of showing up, the act of acknowledging what you're going through. Now, here's the key before I forget. There is a big difference between just opening up, crying all the time, telling everybody your issues, and being vulnerable. That's not vulnerability. Vulnerability isn't just running around telling everybody what's going on. Vulnerability is an intentional act. It's an intentional act of opening up in a way that is helping you navigate the things that you're going through and also deepening the connection and relationship you have with the person you're opening up to. And that person could be you, because a lot of times we struggle with vulnerability because we're not even vulnerable with ourselves. When you're alone, right, and it's just you and you, you're afraid to be vulnerable. You're afraid to actually acknowledge what you're going through. And that's really where I think vulnerability starts. It starts when you're alone. It starts when it's just you and you. Can you be vulnerable with yourself, right? Talking to yourself, yo, this is what I'm going through. I am struggling with this right now. I'm acknowledging that as a man to myself. I'm going through this, right? When you're in your room alone, when you're in that solitude and it's just you and God, can you be vulnerable in those moments, right? Can you be vulnerable in those moments? And I've learned that when I began to be vulnerable in times of solitude, when it was just me and myself, me and God, that is really where my connection to the Creator grew the most. When I was able to be vulnerable in my most lowest moments, in my most loneliest moments, right? And that has allowed me to understand that the things that I was so scared to open up about, the things that I once viewed as hindrances and imperfections and just horrible parts of myself could actually turn out to be things that help me more than anything else in life, right? I'm telling you, when you shift your perspective on the things that you go through, your emotions, your feelings, the things that you're struggling with, to understand that each and every one of these things they're guides, they're signals from our higher self trying to get us to move into a certain direction, it changes your whole mind frame on how you view the things that you go through, especially vulnerability. Embrace vulnerability, right? Embrace vulnerability. This is good. She said, vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they're never weaknesses. That's a fact. That is so good. Vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. That's the thing too. We talked about this in the last episode, just the releasing of wanting everything to feel comfortable. Vulnerability is not comfortable at all. It is not comfortable. And it is scary. You know, it really is scary to be vulnerable about the things that you're going through, right? But that's what courage is. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's doing it afraid. So when you're tasked, when you're in a position where you need to be vulnerable and you're incredibly scared, understand that that's an opportunity right there to be courageous. And on the other side of you taking that leap of courage is something you could never imagine, right? I always like to view it like this. You know what one path is going to get you. You know what the safe path is going to get you. You know what not being vulnerable is going to get you. You know what not acknowledging what you're going through is going to get you, right? You know what all these things are going to get you because you've been living your life like that. But you don't know what being vulnerable and actually deciding to do it anyway, even though you're scared, and leaning into courage. You don't know what's on the other side of that. And because you don't know, that's what brings such a heightened sense of fear, right? Because a lot of times fear is just the inability to know what's to come. But this is where you have to have a conversation with yourself. Do you want to keep getting the same results and living the life that you've been living? Or do you want to try something different? Right? Nobody in the history of mankind has ever gotten gotten a bad rep for trying, I'd say. Like actually trying something that's beneficial. I'm not talking about, because you got people who will troll and say, oh, what about, nah, I'm talking about real life stuff. Like if you're actually trying at something that is for the betterment of you or the betterment of society, nobody in the history of mankind has ever really looked at that and been like, that's a bad thing, right? It's not. It's not. You just got to try it because you know what this is going to get you. You know what life A is going to get you. You've been doing it over and over and over and getting the same results. You want something different, you got to do something different. It's that simple. You want different, you got to do different. You want better, you got to be better. You want change, you got to change. And all these things require vulnerability. All these things require vulnerability. And here's another thing about vulnerability. And it ties into love. But to be vulnerable is to risk being hurt. To be vulnerable is to risk being hurt, to risk being rejected, to risk being heartbroken. But let me tell you this, that is a risk worth taking. It is a risk worth taking because the pain of heartbreak, the pain of rejection, the pain of loss will never outweigh the pain of staying stuck in a position or in a situation or in a mindset or in a place that you are not meant to be, right? So, yes, you are risking being hurt, but it's for a good reason, right? It's for a good reason. And it's, like we said, like the law of duality, yin and yang, right? In order to really experience love to the fullest, you have to have experienced heartbreak and you have to have experienced hate and hurt and sorrow, right? In order to really understand happiness and understand joy, you have had to have gone through some of the lowest moments in your life, some of the hardest things, But you got to be vulnerable. You got to be vulnerable with it. You got to be vulnerable with your life. You have to be vulnerable with yourself, right? Vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a strength. It is a strength that will lead to you being a more aligned and authentic version of yourself. It's hard to be authentic if you're not vulnerable, because being vulnerable means you're being real. You're being honest. And if you're not real or you're not honest, you cannot be authentic. They don't go together. They do not go together, right? You gotta be vulnerable. And let's go into relationships real quick. We'll do a whole episode on relationships, intimate relationships. But a lot of the times as men too, we have this perception, like I said, that vulnerability is a weakness. So often, I truly believe that women are looking for men to be vulnerable and honest about what they're going through. Women naturally have a nurturing spirit. They're naturally in tune with their emotions, right? Their intuition is like no other. And as a man, when you lean into that vulnerability, right? Understanding that you have both masculine and feminine energy in you. But when you lean into that vulnerability, not from a place of weakness or trying to just dump everything onto your woman or partner, but when you lean into it, understanding that as a man, I have to be honest and real about what I'm going through. And I want my woman to know that I'm going to be honest and real no matter what situation we're in. When you really lean into that, that is going to deepen your relationship with that woman on a whole different level, right? And sometimes, like I said, Reese being hurt, not all women will receive it the right way. But when you got a real one, when you got one that's how you know you got one that really you're supposed to be with. When you can be open and vulnerable about what you're going through as a man, and she stay 10 toes, and she's still there for you, and she helps you navigate that, and she listens, and she brings her nurturing emotional presence into that space. That's when you know you got a real one, As a man, you don't want to always have your guard up. You don't want to have to go through this life navigating, the outside world and, doing all this stuff and then have to come home and have your guard up with your woman. You want to be able to let that down. And vulnerability allows for that. It allows for that. It does. So that's for all my guys out there. But definitely embrace vulnerability. Embrace it. Number 3, you got to trust your intuition. You have to trust your intuition. That inner voice that we have within us. I like to view it like this. We have a higher self, right? We have a higher version of ourselves that is constantly guiding us through this journey. And that inner voice, that intuition we have is God. It's our highest self. It's the universe speaking to us about what we need to be doing. But so often in our life, we don't listen to that because we're so caught up in the external world. We get so caught up in what's going on around us that we diminish that inner voice over time, right? And it's harder to hear as you continue to go about your journey. But that inner voice, right? When they say follow your heart, that's what they're talking about. Following your intuition, following your inner voice, because it's there to guide you. It's an inner compass that God has placed within each and every one of us to follow. But here's the thing about your intuition. Here's the thing about your inner voice. Just like everything else in your life, you have to practice at it to get better at it. In order to hear it more, you have to sit with it more. You have to get quiet more. You have to get in solitude more, right? If you're constantly being stimulated by your phone, by other people, by what's going on in the external world, and you never give yourself time to just be and sit, you'll never feel clarity within yourself. You'll never be able to hear what that inner guidance, that inner compass is trying to tell you, right? That's why so many people feel lost. You know, people don't know how to follow their heart because they don't even know what's going on within themselves. They've never taken time to just stop and pause and really reflect on what is going on in their life. Right? We're just getting caught by the tide of life and letting life take us wherever we want to be, instead of realizing we are the creators of our life. We are the captain of our ship. You dictate where you go. Don't allow the tide to take you. You take yourself where you want to go. And that inner guidance, that intuition that God has placed within each and every one of us is the compass to get us to where we need to be. Right? To get us to where we need to be, but you have to listen to it. You have to embrace it. You have to embrace it. And here's the thing about intuition I've learned. Your intuition is usually going to guide you into the direction that's most scariest. And that's why it's so tough. That's why a lot of people don't listen to it or neglect it over time, because it's constantly pushing you into the direction of the fear, of the anxiety, of the thing that scares you most. Right? Because in order for you to become the best version of yourself, it's going to take courage. In order for you to become the best version of yourself, it's going to take discomfort. Right? In order for you to do all the things that God has placed on your life for you to do, it's going to take struggle and adversity. Right? But because we allow fear and these emotions and these things to have so much control and dominion over our life, we never lean into it. We never listen to that inner voice. We push it to the side, right? Because each and every one of us knows when we're not staying true to ourselves. Each and every one of us knows when we want to really, really try something. We really want to put ourselves out there and do something and go this way. But we allow the fear or the opinions of what we think other people will think to keep us moving in this direction that everybody else is moving. In my mind, I've always said this. It's impossible to get something different than everybody else if you're doing the same thing as everybody else. It's impossible. If you are constantly doing what everybody else is doing, you cannot expect to get something different, right? And this isn't no shame or anything. This is just, I'm being honest with you guys about how I view life. Because of the way our society is set up, right? And the way that we've, as a collective structured the things that go on, my mindset really is this. And it has been for probably the last year and a half, 2 years. I look at what 99% of people are doing in this world that I see around me on social media, all this stuff. I look at what majority of people do, and I say I'm going to do the exact opposite because I do not want those results. I do not want to live a life controlled by fear. I do not want to live a life where I just settle and I stay in my comfort zone all the time. I do not want to live a life where I don't have real, genuine connections with people. I do not want to live a life where I feel like every single day I'm not staying true to myself, or I don't even know who I am, or I'm neglecting myself as a whole because, like I said, that inner voice is constantly telling us what we should do or the path that we should go. And every time we say no, we are neglecting ourselves. And over time, you neglect yourself so much that you've completely lost who you are. You've had to put on this whole facade or this new character in order to keep up this self-neglect path that you've been going on, right? So you just gotta get quiet, get in silence, go for a walk, go for a hike, whatever it may be, and listen to yourself, because you do have all the answers, right? You do have all the answers. I truly believe that God has given us every single thing that we need within ourselves. And the reason I think God has put it in ourselves, let me run that back. God has given us everything that we need within ourselves. And the reason I think God did that is because God knows that the toughest thing in this life that you'll have to overcome and you'll have to deal with is yourself. Do you know how hard it is to take a pause on life and to look within and to deal with the things that you have within yourself, the traumas, the past experiences, the rejection, the grief, right? All those different emotions. It's incredibly difficult to deal with those things, so we don't. But here's the thing. You are not alone on that journey. When you go within, guess who's waiting there? God. God not only put everything that you need within you, God also put himself in you. Right? And however you view that, however you want to take that, take it. But that spirit, the same power that God used to create everything in this universe, God placed within us. And the only way to tap into that power is to look within yourself. It's to look within yourself, right? You got to learn how to have self-respect. You have to learn how to give yourself love. You have to learn how to pump the brakes on your life, sit in solitude and listen, right? But everything that you need is already within you. It is. You don't have to go anywhere to find it. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to find anyone to find it. It's in you. It's just hard to sit there and go within because we aren't taught that in our society. We're a very external society. Everything is external, right? Our value as human beings is based off of what we attain externally, not about the gifts and amazingness and uniqueness that we have internally, right? But you don't have to follow the status quo. You don't have to follow what everybody else is doing unless you want what everybody else has. If you want what everybody else has, follow what everybody else is doing, right? But if you want to live for you, then you're going to have to start making decisions for you. You're going to have to start figuring out who you are. You're going to have to start tapping into the things that God has placed within yourself, right? And as you go down that journey, although it may be incredibly uncomfortable and incredibly scary, you're going to learn over time of just continuing to show up, because that's what vulnerability is, the courage to just show up without any outcome. But you're going to learn over time as you continue to take steps down that journey how beautiful and unique you are as a human being, and the things that God has placed within you, and how you actually can live a life of authenticity and alignment and fulfillment, right? You can do those things, but it's on you to do it. It's on you to do it. I've learned too about intuition. Every time I've neglected that inner voice, it's never led to peace. It's never led to a feeling of I made the right decision. It's always left me with a weird feeling like, nah, man, that ain't me. I didn't stay true to myself. And every time I've listened to it and leaned into it and let it guide me, Only good things have came from that. Growth, right? Healthy relationships, amazing opportunities, whatever it may be, right? But understand this. Once you learn that on your journey of growth, the path is usually the scary one, you'll stop neglecting yourself because of fear. You'll stop neglecting that inner voice because of fear, right? Fear is the signal. It is the doorway to your truth, to your most authentic self, to the best version of yourself, to that opportunity, to your success, right? Lean into it. Number 4, the fourth key. Learn how to set boundaries for your life. In order to live an authentic and aligned life, you have to have healthy boundaries in place. You have to. It's inevitable. This is something I really had to learn because growing up, I was always a people pleaser. I was always letting people just take advantage of me or do whatever they wanted because I didn't even understand what boundaries were. And I always did this. This was one of the most, I don't even know how to word this, but I was always naive to this. I would always feel like people should treat me the way I'm treating them. And I never understood why they weren't giving me that energy back. How could this person do this to me? I would never do that. Let me tell you something about this life. You have to understand that people are not going to do what you would do. And if anything, it's not fair to have that, put that expectation on that person. So many of us do that. Man, I would have never did that. How could they have done that? They're not you, that's why. And you're not them, right? So putting the expectation on them that they're supposed to do what you would do, you're already setting yourself up for failure right there. And I'm speaking from experience because I would do that all the time. And I had to learn that everybody's different, right? Everybody's different. And when people show you their true colors, believe them the first time. Do not be naive because you see the best in somebody. Do not be naive because you feel like you can change somebody. When people show you your true colors, believe them the first time, right? Believe them the first time. People do not change for other people. People change for themselves. So if you're in a relationship with somebody and you're trying to get them to change, you're setting yourself up for failure. That's probably not somebody you should be with right then. Because if they're not willing to change for themselves, you're not going to be able to make them change. You're not. And I had to learn that the hard way, man. You'll go to really extreme lengths trying to change somebody. But until you realize that people will not change unless they want to change, you're going to keep exhausting wasted energy on the people that just do not deserve it, quite frankly. They do not deserve it from you. You don't deserve that from you. You don't. But a lot of times people lack boundaries because they lack self-respect. If you don't have self-respect, people are just going to do whatever they want to you. I'm going to be real. They're going to do whatever they want to you. And you're going to allow it. That's the thing about it. People be so hurt by what other people do to them constantly, over and over, right? How could this person do this over and over? I gave them a second chance. I did this. You're allowing it. You're allowing it. So often we are just so focused on how that person could have did that to us. How? They're horrible. I can't believe they did that. Yada, yada. But we never focus on how we allowed it to happen. We allowed it to happen. And now I'm not saying that you won't be hurt. I'm not saying that people won't do you wrong because, like I said, when people show you their true colors, believe them the first time. Most people, somebody does something, we give them second chances. I need y'all to understand something about unconditional love. Unconditional love does not mean reconciliation. Unconditional love does not mean we have to stay together. Unconditional love does not mean that we're going to continue on with this relationship. It don't mean second chances. It does not mean that. So don't confuse love with reconciliation because that's not what it means. So many people would be like, oh, because I love this person, I gave him a second chance. That you don't have to, though. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to give somebody a second chance. You could forgive them, right? That's what love requires. Love requires forgiveness, but it does not require reconciliation. And that's why self-respect is so important, because when you have a certain level of self-respect, when people show you their true colors, you're going to believe them the first time. And because you respect yourself so much, you're going to make sure that doesn't happen to you again from that person. Oh, you've already shown me who you are, and I do love you, but I also love myself. So I'm going to separate from this relationship. Sometimes that means we're not even going to talk no more. Still love you, though. I still wish the best for you. But we're just not aligned. I have certain boundaries. I have a certain level of respect for myself, right? And that's just the truth of the matter. It's just the truth of the matter. And what setting boundaries does, what having a certain level of self-respect does, is it helps you to lean more on what you know rather than what you feel. So often, we neglect what we can see and what we know because of how we feel towards somebody. And all that will lead to is you getting more hurt. When somebody shows you something and you know this to be true, make a decision out of that rather than, oh, I feel a certain way towards this person. I feel so strongly towards this person. So I'm going to push all these things I've been seeing and all these things that I know that aren't aligned with me to the side because I like them so much or I love them so much. You will get hurt doing that. And I'm speaking from experience. You will get hurt doing that. Rely more on what you know rather than how you feel. And that's in life. That's in all aspects of life, not even just relationships, right? So often in the moment we feel a certain way, right? But when we really sit back and reflect, we know we shouldn't do this thing. We shouldn't lean into that. We shouldn't go that way, right? And one of the hardest things in life is learning how to let what you know guide you rather than how you feel guide you, right? It's not easy, but it takes practice. And I just lost my whole train of thought, but it is, I don't know. You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. But it is possible. There we go. It is possible. It isn't easy, but it is possible. So learn how to rely more on what you know rather than how you feel, right? Because what you know will definitely protect you. And how you feel will definitely get you into some sticky situations. You know what I mean? It will. But just having healthy boundaries and just non-negotiables. Like for me, I'm at the place now where it's like, growing up as a people pleaser, you're always putting people's feelings and emotions ahead of yours. Always. I'm at a place now where it's like, if I know I'm staying true to myself, to keep it quite frank, I don't really care how that affects you in a sense, because I have to stay true to myself. I wouldn't say I don't care. I definitely do. I'm not out here trying to just hurt people. Like, that's not me. And there is ways to go about it where people, don't get hurt. But there's going to be times where you stay true to yourself and people try to manipulate you into making you feel bad for doing that. And self-respect, having healthy boundaries, puts your foot down and lets them know we're not doing that. You can feel a certain way about my decision, but me knowing I'm staying true to myself, I'm going to rely more on that than how you feel about it. Right? Because so often we allow how other people feel about our situations to dictate what we do. Right? Self-respect says, nah, I respect myself. I love myself. I know myself. So when I make a decision or I do something, I know it's coming from the truth in who I actually am. And if you don't agree with that or you don't like that, I'm sorry, but I got to stay true to me. I can't change who I am to make you feel comfortable. It's the same with being negative. I've gotten to the point now, I am an optimist. I do always see light at the end of the tunnel. I am a very positive person. And I'm not going to change that because you're negative, because you're a pessimist, right? Because you're closed-minded. So if you're around me, you're not going to feel comfortable because I'm not changing who I am to fit a puzzle that makes you feel comfortable. I'm not doing that. I'm not. I've done that before, and it's draining. One of the worst feelings in the world is self-sabotage, is self-neglect, right? It's one of the worst feelings in the world. I just dimmed my light to make you feel more comfortable. Now when I go home and I'm alone, I feel horrible because I know I didn't stay true to myself. I know I just did something that I didn't even want to do just to make you feel comfortable, right? And I'll take that with a grain of salt because I'm not saying, compromises and sacrifices aren't needed in order to have healthy relationships and to, find genuine connections. But there's a big difference between, making compromises and healthy sacrifices and just neglecting yourself as a whole and doing something that is not you to fit into a crowd or to make somebody feel comfortable. You do not want to be with people where you have to change who you are to make them feel comfortable. You don't want to be around people where you have to change who you are to make them feel comfortable. You don't, right? So if you're in a group of people or you're with somebody where you are constantly having to change who you actually are to make them feel comfortable or to fit in, that is probably not the relationship or group you should be in. And that's where self-respect comes in. Self-respect is the ability to step away from things that are not for you, no matter how much it hurts. No matter how much it hurts. I respect myself too much. I love myself too much to stay in a situation where I do not feel like I could be all of who I am. I do not feel like I can stay true to myself. I feel like I have to keep contracting and dimming my light in order to make people feel comfortable. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm sorry. And yeah, it hurts because I love all y'all or I love this person. But I have to stay true to myself. Staying true to yourself requires heartbreak. Staying true to yourself is going to require a certain level of pain and hurt, right? And loss, right? If you're going down this path of alignment and authenticity and you want to live a life staying true to yourself, you have to be prepared to lose certain people. You have to be prepared to lose certain things. It's going to happen. Not everybody can go where you're going, and that is okay. That's what we have to understand too. Not everybody is going where you're going, and that is okay. Some people come into your life for seasons to teach you something, to help you grow in a certain area, and then that's it. That's it for that season of your life. They were needed. As you move into a new season, they're no longer needed in your life, and that is okay, right? I don't know why we have such a negative connotation with separation from people, with letting go of relationships. It is part of life. And think about how draining it would be to try to keep every single relationship that you ever have in your life around. It's just not going to happen. It's not, right? Obviously, you'll have, like I said, people come in your life for different reasons. So you'll have people that are really lifelong. But you'll also have people that come in and it's great when they're there, and then that was it. Because the way y'all are growing, over time, you guys keep growing, and you're slowly growing apart. You have some people in your life where you come together, and as you both grow, you get closer and closer, right? And you just have to allow, the growth to do its thing. Don't get in the way of growth because you want to keep a relationship. Don't get in the way of growth because you want to stay in a certain environment or place, right? Don't get in the way of that, because sometimes growth is going to pull you out of that situation. It's going to pull you out of that relationship. It's going to pull you out of that environment, and you have to be willing to go with growth, right? Because if you're not growing, you're just staying stagnant. My mom always says, I don't know, what is it? Fungus grows in stagnant water. Bacteria grows in stagnant water. You want to constantly be flowing, right? You want to constantly be flowing with the universe, right? So, number 5, align actions with intentions. I love this one. This is one of my favorite. Align your actions with your intentions. Now we're going to start, after we read that forward, align actions with intentions, we got to go backwards. The steps to it is backwards. You have to figure out where your intentions are. And after you get really clear on your intentions, you start to focus on your actions on an everyday basis to align them to the intentions. If you don't know your intentions, it's going to be hard to have actions that align with something you don't know. You just don't know what it is. So the first step is figuring out what your intentions are, right? Every day I wake up, my intentions, I'm setting my intentions for the day. Gratitude and service. Gratitude and service. Gratitude and service. Devotion. Discipline. Right? Unconditional love. Openness. Right? I'm aligning myself with these things. Authenticity. All these intentions that I have, I'm setting myself in that. And now as I go throughout my day, because I've worked on self-awareness, right? Because that's what part of growth is becoming aware. Every decision I make, I'm asking myself, is this aligned with my intentions or not? And the thing about it is you're not always going to make aligned decisions. That is okay. But the awareness helps you to stay on track, if that makes sense. But you got to figure out what your intentions are. Figure out, why are you living? What are you living for? What are you trying to do in this world? Whenever I started this journey of like self-improvement, self-discovery, healing, all that stuff, my number one vision, my number one picture in life was literally simple. I wrote it on a piece of paper. Become the best version of Isaiah Salter. That's it. That was the number one thing. And then after I wrote that down, I was like, okay, if I could literally in my mind right now create a picture of what I feel like the best version of myself would look like, what are those characteristics, values, and intentions aligned with that person? And what I started to do over time was slowly start to chip at them one at a time and try to implement them into my life. And as you do that over a long period of time, it becomes who you are. Now, your actions start to align with that vision, with that picture, with those intentions, with those values. Your life is going to change. It's going to change. It's going to change. And it's about the smallest of smallest actions. It's not the big actions. It's the smallest actions, the smallest things. That one little interaction with that person, right? The time you wake up, when you told yourself you were going to wake up at a certain time, waking up at that time, doing what you told yourself you were going to do, all those things, right? But once you get clear on your intentions, your why, your values, and things like that, align your actions with them and give yourself the grace to grow through mistakes. Give yourself the grace to grow through mess ups and understanding it's a journey, it's a process. But what's going to happen is you're going to slowly, over time, as you continue to take it step by step, moment by moment, you're going to slowly start to create momentum. And that momentum is going to carry you into new seasons, into new opportunities, into new relationships, into new experiences. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Before we move on to the next, literally in everything that you do, all I want you to do right now is pause and really sit with yourself and ask yourself this question. Do my daily habits align with the person that I want to become? Sit with that. And going back to the second key, embracing vulnerability. Be real, be honest, be vulnerable. Do your daily habits and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Does it align with the person that you want to become? Sit with that and be honest with yourself. And if the answer is yes, keep on going, keep on growing, keep on making the shifts you need to make. If the answer is no, that is okay. But how can we start today to start making small changes towards the person that we want to become? How can we start today, right? So let's start there. Key number 6, living with integrity. I think integrity and character coincide. So having a strong character, living with integrity, I feel like they go together. Who are you when you're alone? How do you treat people when nobody's around? How do you talk about people when they're not around? What do you do when nobody is watching, right? When it's just you and you. Integrity, right? Do you do things for the validation of others, or do you do things because that's genuinely who you are? Integrity, character, right? When you're going through struggle and you're going through adversity, who are you in that moment? Character. You know? When you get tested with things that you know you shouldn't be doing, who are you in that moment? Integrity. Right? You got to focus on these things because these things are literally the foundation of what will carry you through this life. So many people have weak foundations and they wonder why when life throws things at them, they crumble, they fall. They immediately go into the victim mindset, right? You haven't built a strong foundation over time, right? Character and integrity are things you have to build over a period of time. All right, you're constantly being faced with struggle. Every time you get faced with struggle or adversity or hardship, that is an opportunity to work on your character right there, Those are character development moments, right? Every time you're alone and you have a decision to make, either to make an aligned decision or to make a decision that you know isn't true to you, that is integrity. That's how you work on your integrity. How can I continue to make aligned decisions when nobody's watching, nobody else is around? That's your integrity. How can I stay true to myself no matter what situation I'm in? Integrity, right? When there's 10 people in a room and you're the only person that doesn't really agree with what's going on, can you stay true to that and be honest? Integrity, right? Integrity. Always ask yourself in every situation, am I being true right now? Am I being true to myself right now? It's that simple. Am I being true to myself right now? And I hope you realize that a common theme I always speak about is it is not about perfection, it's about progression, right? All these things that we're talking about, right? The devotion, the character, the integrity, all these things, all the things that you have to bring awareness to and make aligned decisions. It is not about always making the right decision. It's about the awareness of what you're doing so that you can make more aligned decisions than not. It's not about getting to 10 out of 10. It's about getting to that 7 to 8 out of 10, right? It's like this. If you're trying to eat healthy, right, there's going to be times where maybe you don't have your meals around or you're somewhere where you have to eat what they have. Allow that to be the 1 or 2 times, not that every single time you're in a situation like that or you're around, you're eating unhealthy. The goal is to get from doing it 2 out of 10 times to 7 or 8 out of 10 times, right? It's not about 10 out of 10. It's not about 10 out of 10. We're not preaching perfection because it's impossible to be perfect. And I don't think God made life to be perfect on purpose. I think that's the beauty in life, the imperfections, right? All that stuff. There's so much in it. But yes, integrity is everything. Integrity, character, focus on those things. Integrity is living in your truth regardless of the external circumstances. Living in your truth regardless of the external circumstances. I don't care who's around me. I don't care where I'm at. I'm staying true to myself. I'm staying true to myself. Key number 7. This is a really good one. Honor your needs. Honor your needs as an individual, as a spiritual being having a human experience. Honor your needs. You have to have your own back. You have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. You have to make sure you're taking care of yourself. You're the person that you spend the most time with, right? So often, we have to take time for ourselves. We need to fill our cups up, but we don't because we get so caught up in the life and what's going on and other people. It's like you got to honor your needs. If you feel like today, I just want to be by myself, I need to go, take care of myself, be in solitude, honor that. Honor that, right? If you feel like, man, I just need to go for a walk, I need to, go get some steam off or just navigate what I'm going through in my mind, honor that. Honor that. Man, I really just do not want to talk to people today. So I'm not going to answer any texts. I'm not going to answer any calls unless it's an emergency. Honor that. Man, I really want to start eating healthier. I really want to start taking care of my body. I feel like I really need this. Honor that. Honor that. Really honor that. Man, I've been wanting to speak up about how I actually feel to this person, right? Even though it's hard and it's uncomfortable. I really have something heavy that I want to tell them. Honor that. Honor your needs. Honor what you need from you, right? Because the more you neglect your needs, the more you are neglecting yourself. And in return, you're neglecting the healthy relationship. You're neglecting that opportunity or that experience that you could have from honoring your needs. Honor your needs today, right? You got to view your body as a temple. You have to view yourself as, this is the temple of God right here. Each and every one of us has the temple of God that we get to harness and live in. You have to take care of it. You have to take care of it. The kingdom is within you. You have to take care of this, right? You have to, on an everyday basis, do the things that you need from you. Take that walk, right? Stop drinking that thing. Stop eating those things. Stop going to that place. Stop being around those type of people. Honor your needs. Honor your temple. Take care of what you need to take care of, right? Take care of what you need to take care of. So much of life, so much of stress, so much of that feeling of misalignment comes from us just not honoring what we need from us. How are you ever going to feel a sense of clarity or peace if you're constantly neglecting what you need from you? If you're in a relationship with somebody else and you are not honoring what they need from you in that relationship, it's going to cause a lot of stress. It's going to cause a lot of tension. It's going to cause a lot of misalignment. It's the same with the relationship with yourself, right? If there's certain things that you need from you, but you're neglecting to give yourself those things, it's going to create a lot of stress. It's going to create a lot of confusion within yourself, a lot of misalignment. So make sure you're honoring your needs in all aspects of life, right? And you got to be honest with that. This goes back to the vulnerability. You have to embrace vulnerability in order to honor your needs. You have to be honest and open about what you're dealing with or what you're going through in order to honor your needs. You have to be real about the season that you're in or the circumstance that you're in order to honor your needs. You have to be real about how you're feeling in the moment in order to honor your needs, right? So start bringing attention and intention to that, right? Start bringing attention and intention to that. Honor yourself. Honor your needs, right? Honor your needs. It's like, do y'all think God gave us these vessels and these temples in order to just not honor them, not take care of them, not feed them the right stuff, right? Not give them the right things? Like, I don't know why we view our walk with God as an external. It is an internal journey. Your walk with God is an internal thing. The things on the external help you to facilitate what goes on the internal, but it's an internal thing. You have to take care of this in all aspects of life, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. All of those things you have to take care of within yourself, right? You have to honor your needs. Key number 8. This is one of the most important in life. Surrounding yourself with the right people. Surround yourself with the right people. There's a saying that if you show me your 5 closest friends, I can show you your future. I truly believe that is true. I truly believe that is true. The 5 people you spend the most time with. Who you're around will dictate so much of your life. Will dictate so much of your life. Like, if you're constantly around negative-minded people, if you're constantly around pessimists, if you're constantly around people who always see the worst in things, if you're constantly around people who always want to bring other people down, slowly over time, you're going to start taking on those characteristics, right? You're going to start taking around those characteristics. You can't be a big dreamer around small-minded people. It don't work. It do not work. And this is why this goes back to honoring your needs. This goes back to self-respect, having healthy boundaries, self-respect, all that stuff. I think I just said that twice, but you know what I'm saying. You have to be willing to let go of certain people or groups that no longer serve you. You have to be willing to let go of those people that are only holding you back. There's so often in this life I see people around me where I'm like, bro, how do you not realize that those people you're around ain't doing nothing for you? It's very evident, right? It's very evident. And a big way you can see this too is how people speak when it's just you two versus how they speak around certain people. You can immediately tell the effect that certain people have on other people from how they act or how they start speaking when they get around those type of people. Right? But in order to be authentic, in order to be real, in order to start being vulnerable, in order to start living out your truth, you have to be around people who are doing that for themselves, or at least want that for themselves, right? In order to grow and embrace the journey of growth, you have to be around people with the growth mindset, with the positive mindset, right? And here's the thing. If you don't have anybody in your life to do that with, that's an opportunity to go into solitude, to go into a season of isolation and find that relationship with yourself. Make sure that when you're around you feel uplifted. right? Make sure when you're around you, you feel good. You feel me? Let's start there. Let's start there. You feel me? But if you're not around the right people, man, oh my gosh, they will just, man, so often, man, people are just so negative all the time, just so negative. This is going wrong. I can't believe they did this. Oh my gosh, it's this person's. Respectfully, just get away from me. Get away from me. Now, matter of fact, you don't even got to get away from me. I'm going to get away from you because I don't want to be around that. Like, I do not want to be around that. You know what I mean? And that's not judging. That's not hating. That's not being mean. I'm just being honest. I don't want to be around that stuff because that stuff will really drag you down. It will really just add extra weight onto you that you don't need. It will start to take from your truth and your authenticity, right? You have to be mindful. The same way you have to be mindful about what you watch and what you listen to, you have to be mindful about who you're around on an everyday basis. Really be honest. Ask yourself, are the people that I'm around aligned with where I'm trying to go in my life? Like, honestly. And one of the toughest things, right, about surrounding yourself with people is when it's family or friends you've been around lifelong. Just because you have been in my life 5, 10, 15 years, maybe my whole life, does not mean I got to keep you in my life forever. I'm sorry, it don't. Sometimes that's the hardest thing is when it's people you've been around for so long. You reach a certain point where you're like, man, like I'm growing, I'm evolving, I'm learning different things. I'm starting to figure out who I am. And I just don't think this relationship aligns. I don't align with these people anymore. It might be family. I don't align with my family anymore, whatever it may be. Can you have the courage to step away from that relationship or those people or that group, right? Because those are the decisions you're going to have to make in order to become the best version of yourself and get to where you're meant to be. Man, somebody being family does not give. It's not just because somebody's family does not mean you have to stay around them. Just because somebody's a lifelong friend up until this point does not mean you have to keep that relationship around. If it's hurting you more than it's helping you, this is where self-respect comes in. This is where self-love comes in. This is where staying true to you comes in. You got to make that decision for you, for the betterment of you in that future version of yourself that you have in your mind. You know? And it's not going to be easy, but you got to do it. You have to do it, man. If you're not around the right people, it will just, oh, man, I see it all the time. It just messes so many people up. And a lot of times, too, you don't even realize the impact that certain people are having on you till you get away from them. That's one of the most eye-opening things. People that you thought, were great. There was nothing wrong with this relationship. You get away from them for a certain amount of time, you start to realize, oh my gosh, I did not realize the negative impact that they were having on me subconsciously, right? Because I was just so caught up in the routine of being around them all the time. But now that I'm away and we've created that distance and I'm getting a whole new perspective, I'm getting clarity on who I am, I can see that there were certain things that were in that relationship where it was just taking from me on a constant basis. Man. And it opened your eyes to start realizing, to start just focusing on how you're feeling around certain people. What are you doing when you're around certain people, right? This goes back to self-awareness. So many people just lack self-awareness. We're not even bringing any attention or awareness to what we're doing when we get around certain people. You have to focus on that. Right? Do you change the way you start talking? Do you change how you think? Do you change what you do? Right? Ask yourself these questions. Start to really focus on these things, right? And make the decisions that you need to make for the betterment of you and your future. Make decisions today that your future self will be proud of. Make decisions today that your future self will be proud of. Make sure that you have your back. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Right? Make sure you're protecting yourself, right? All that stuff from people, places, and things. Key number 9. I like this one too. This is a great one. Key number 9. Accept and celebrate imperfection. Counterintuitive, it may sound, but no. This is actually one of the most important things on your journey of growth, because you have to come to the understanding that you are imperfect. You will make mistakes. You will mess up. You will struggle in certain areas. Accept it and even celebrate it, right? Because in those imperfections, in those mistakes, in those times of struggle, there is so much opportunity for growth. There is so much opportunity for you, right? And where the celebration comes from is when you make the mistake. You do mess up. You are going through a struggle and you have the right perspective in it. You learn how to navigate it. You keep on taking steps, and then you come out the other side more equipped, more resilient, deeper understanding of yourself and of life. And you've evolved into a better version of yourself. Celebrate that. Celebrate that, because that's big, right? And a lot of times we don't get through struggle. We don't get through the mistake. We don't get through the tough times because we never accept it. And acceptance does not mean saying, oh my gosh, this is the reality of my situation, it's over. Acceptance is saying, no, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm going through in the moment. I'm accepting it so that I can change it. I am accepting it so that I can change it. If you never accept it, you won't be able to change it. You're just going to continue to run from it. You're just going to continue to neglect it. And the things that you run from, the things that you neglect, you can't change. You can't change. So if you want to change things, accept them. Accept them. And there's so much liberation in acceptance because you're taking control of your life. You're taking control over the things that you have control over, right? You're taking the reins back. You're saying, you know what? We here. This is the reality. I'm in this situation. I'm accepting it. And I'm accepting it so that I can overcome it. I'm accepting it so that I can face it. I'm accepting it so that I can grow through it. Acceptance. Acceptance. Right? Self-compassion, right? We talked about compassion earlier for other people. Self-compassion. You have to have compassion for yourself. Sometimes you have to remove yourself, right, from being yourself and view yourself as you would a friend. How would you treat your friend if he was going through or she was going through what you were going through? What would you say to them, right? Would you beat them down? Would you tell them how they're not good enough, right? Would you focus on the lack of everything? Or would you try to encourage them and tell them it's going to be okay and I'm here for you and I got your back? And although we may not understand now, although it might be confusing, although it might be incredibly difficult, we're going to continue to take steps. We're going to continue to take it moment by moment. We're going to continue to lean not on our own understanding and have faith and trust that this same situation can turn out to be a blessing in the future, right? It could turn out to be a blessing in the future. This burden that I'm feeling can turn out to be one of my greatest blessings, right? Be there for you, right? Be your best friend. Make sure that you have your own back, right? And talk to yourself in the way that you would talk to a friend that's going through what you're going through, you know, for real. And the last thing I'll say on that point is, on this key is, the reason you need to start embracing imperfections in this journey is because if you have an unhealthy attachment to wanting everything to be perfect in your life, it's going to create so much added pressure and stress and just dis-ease within yourself, unease within yourself. Like, avoid that at all costs. Like, perfectionism, I get it. You have high expectations for yourself. You want to be great, all that stuff. But there's no such thing as being perfect. So you're literally chasing after something that does not exist. Think about how that sounds. You're chasing after something that does not exist. That is what perfectionism is. You are chasing after something that does not exist. There is nothing in the known universe that is perfect other than God, right? But there's nothing in the known universe that's perfect. So you chasing after this idea of perfection, you're chasing after nothing over and over and over again. You're just chasing after nothing. Nothing will ever be good enough. It will always need more to it. Learn how to Learn how to just release your attachment to things being perfect. Learn how to just embrace the journey every single day, just trying to get 1% better, having fun with messing up because you know it's an opportunity for growth. You know there's a lesson in it, right? You know how liberating it is when you finally realize that this journey is not about being perfect. It's one of the most liberating things. It releases so much pressure from you always trying to feel like you have to get everything right all the time. You don't. Things are not meant to get right all the time, right? Sometimes you have to mess up. Sometimes you need to make that mistake. Sometimes you have to make that decision or that choice, right? Because on the other side of that is something for you. It's a lesson. It's a blessing. It's growth. It's a certain understanding about something that you would not have gotten if you didn't experience that thing or go that direction or make that choice or make that mistake, right? We got to stop viewing imperfections as a negative thing. There's so much beauty in imperfections. It's our imperfections that make us unique and different, right? We grow up and we view imperfections through a negative lens. We only look at them as a negative thing. But no, I think imperfections are a beautiful thing. I think imperfection shows us that each and every one of us are different. It shows us that each and every one of us is on a different path and are going to go through different things. But the thing that brings us all together is what makes us different. It's those imperfections. It's those differences. It's the uniqueness that bring us together as human beings. Although we might have different imperfections and different struggles, we can connect through that. And that's a beautiful thing to me. That is a beautiful thing to me. So learn how to embrace, imperfections and release your attachment to everything being perfect all the time. I don't know why I got my eye, but yeah, for real. And key number 10, stay open to growth. Stay open to growth. Stay open to growth. You will never reach a point in your life where you're like, I'm done growing. I'm good. Everything's set. No. Growth is a journey, a lifelong journey, right? And so often in life, we close ourselves off from the blessings or the opportunities or the healthy relationships or the experiences that God wants to bring into our life because we become closed-minded, because we stop being open to what life has, right? We get comfortable. We get complacent. Stay open to growth. My mantra, my prayer every single day, God, I am open and receive everything that you have for me in whatever way it looks, because I don't want to close off any opportunity or any blessing that God wants to bring into my life. So often we get so attached to how we think our life should look, and we create this box and we think that everything, the blessing, the opportunity that we're praying for should come through this box that we've created. And if it's not coming through this box, we feel like it's not a blessing. We feel like it's not an opportunity, right? We feel like it's not what we asked for. Take that box and throw it out and say, God, I'm open. I'm open to whatever you have for me, right? I don't want to close off anything because I know that anything could be used for the betterment of me. Anything could be a blessing. Anything can be an opportunity, right? But so often we close ourselves off to all those things because we get so rigidly attached to how we think our life should be looking, right? It's not to say don't have dreams, visions, goals, don't have a plan. That is not what I'm saying at all. But don't get so rigidly attached to how your life should be looking, right? That you close off the blessings, lessons, gifts, experiences, and opportunities that God is trying to bring into your life. We're so caught looking over here, right? We create the boxes over here, right? This is the perfect picture for my life, and I'm so fixated over here. All you have to do is remove that box, take a step back, and you'll be able to see the blessing was right here the whole time. The blessing was right there. The opportunity was right there. It just took you releasing your attachment to what you think should be going on and just being open to life, open to the universe, open to God, open to what is out there, right? Because a lot of times what we need is not going to look like what we want. And if you close yourself off to life, if you close yourself off to certain things that come in, you're closing yourself off to the opportunity of the blessing right there. What we need a lot of times will not look like what we want. What we need a lot of times will not look like what we want. And that's why it's so important to let go of what you think you need every single day or what you want, and to let God bring the things that you need for your life. Because it's a posture you have to move into. Openness is a posture you have to move into. It's a certain inner shift that you make. I'm just going to be open. I'm releasing attachments to everything, including people. That's like the number one attachment we have in life is people. We get so attached to people, right? And now, when that relationship has hit its end and it's time for y'all two to separate, or the group to separate, because we've gotten so emotionally attached, we can't let this thing go. We have placed our identity or a part of ourselves into this person or into these, groups of people. And so to lose that thing, we feel like we're losing a part of ourselves. And so we don't let it go. And because we don't let it go, we block the new relationship or the opportunity or community from coming into our life that God is trying to bring into our life, because we're so rigidly attached to the thing that we think is for us. Get out of your own way. Get out of your own way. And stay open to life, right? And being open, like we say with love, is to risk being hurt. It's to risk being rejected. It's to risk having to lose certain people. But it's a risk worth taking. It is a risk worth taking. So take that. Stay open. Be open. Love life. But yeah, that is going to conclude the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed these 10 keys. I know I did. I'm going to listen to this back and make sure I'm applying these things to my life constantly, continuously. But I do appreciate each and every one of y'all. Continue to embrace this journey. Stay open. Stay true to yourself. And most importantly, remember to take everything with a grain of salt. I will see you guys next week. We out.